millionaire challenges a waitress to play the piano, and moments later, the entire room is left in astonishment. The atmosphere within the upscale eatery radiated an understated elegance. Crystal glasses chimed softly, silverware danced against porcelain, and gentle jazz floated through the air from unseen speakers. All was as it should be. All but the young waitress, navigating through the tables, her uniform a bit frayed, her demeanor cautious yet weary. Emma, after 6 long hours on her feet, she served dishes beyond her means, all the while smiling at faces that never truly noticed her. Individuals appreciate the gentleman seated at table 7, Philip Lancaster, the affluent magnate, unyielding, haughty, invincible. He wasn't merely a business owner. He possessed individuals. His presence enveloped the room, commanding attention without uttering a word. And this evening he found himself in a state of ennui. Men of his kind, lacking excitement, they created their own amusement. Emma glided over to his table, placing an exquisite bottle of wine with a delicate flourish. Just as she was about to pull away, Philip's voice sliced through the noise. "Pray tell, dear server, do you partake in the game?" Emma's eyes fluttered. "Shall we engage in a game?" Philip waved his hand nonchalantly in the direction of the sleek black grand piano nestled in the corner of the room. It remained undisturbed, a quiet work of art, a test of skill. A silence enveloped the nearby tables. Emma felt a constriction in her throat. What could have prompted him to ask this? Philip reclined, gently swirling his wine. "So what's the verdict?" His voice held a perilous delight. "Undoubtedly you have experienced dreams. Or have you devoted your entire existence merely providing?" The words cut deep into her soul. All eyes were on the scene now. An unsettling quiet had enveloped the restaurant. Emma sensed the heavy gaze of their scrutiny bearing down on her, anticipating whether she would succumb. Philip wore a sly grin. He was aware that her answer would be no. With a voice that resonated through the air, he took his decisive step. "I will ensure it captivates your attention. Deliver a solid performance, and I'll reward you with $100. If you decline," he merely shrugged his shoulders. "It seems the answer will soon be revealed to everyone." Joyful sounds danced around his table. It was an order. It was a challenge. A snare. Emma's heart raced with intensity. It had been years since she last played the piano. Not since the day of her mother's funeral. Not since the melodies had been interred alongside her. Her fingers clenched tightly into fists. She had the option to leave. Act as if she was indifferent. What comes next? Should we allow him to win? Allow them to believe she was insignificant? Something within her broke. She pivoted, and she strolled. Not distant, moving in the direction of the piano. The atmosphere of the room bore down on Emma as she made her way across the restaurant floor. The sleek black grand piano stood before me, its shiny surface mirroring the warm light of the chandeliers above. Her heartbeat throbbed in her ears, every step growing more burdensome than the one before. She sensed their gaze upon her, observing, anticipating, evaluating. Behind her, Philip Lancaster reclined in his chair, a smirk playing on his lips, swirling his wine with the confidence of someone who had already claimed victory. His colleagues shared knowing looks, a hint of amusement dancing in their eyes. Their curiosity intensified. They anticipated a catastrophe, a girl filled with fear, insufficient strength, so undeserving to be in the presence of an instrument as magnificent as this. Emma took a deep breath as she approached the piano. Her fingers quivered as they glided over the keys. Years had passed since she last engaged in the game. It had been years since she had heard her mother's encouraging voice. Music had always served as her refuge, her sanctuary. Yet life had taken that away from her, burying her aspirations under a mountain of unpaid bills and ceaseless shifts. A piercing voice interrupted her contemplation. "We are in anticipation." Philip, restless and eager, anticipated her downfall. Emma took a deep breath, blocking out the clamor, the gazes, the heavy burden of anticipation. She had no intention of performing for them. Not suitable for Philip. not for the sake of profit. She was performing for her own sake. With a deep inhale, she finally pressed the first key. A solitary note echoed in the atmosphere, pure and eerie. A chill coursed down her spine as her fingers began to move, tentative at first, then quicker, more fluid, led by an instinct buried deep within her. The muscle memory she believed was gone surged back, flowing through her fingertips as if by enchantment. The tune began gently, gradually building into a stunning crescendo. The space, previously alive with soft whispers and gentle chuckles, became still, utterly quiet. Philip's smirk disappeared. The executives, who had once found humor in the moment, now remained motionless in their chairs, their wine glasses neglected, their discussions abandoned. Emma's fingers glided over the keys, her body gently swaying as the melody enveloped her. She was fully immersed in the experience. She immersed herself in each note, embodying it fully, channeling years of hidden pain, hope, and yearning into the melody. It was more than just beautiful. It was deeply moving. Amidst the bustling crowd, a fork clanged against a plate, having slipped from a diner's grasp. A server, caught in motion, halted, completely captivated. A pair engaged in a profound dialogue fell silent, their gaze fixed on Emma, as though they were encountering something entirely unprecedented. Philip's grip on his glass grew firmer. He had anticipated a punchline, a brief instance of clumsy hesitation, a sheepish chuckle. This is not it. Absolutely not this. Emma shut her eyes, surrendering to the rhythm that enveloped her. After years of feeling grounded, she finally experienced a sense of weightlessness, an untouchable power coursing through her. The last note echoed, hanging in the shocked quiet that ensued. In that fleeting instant, stillness enveloped the scene. Silence enveloped the room. Suddenly, a sharp gasp pierced the air. A solitary clap broke the silence, soon joined by another, and then another, until the whole restaurant was filled with a wave of applause. Philip Lancaster remained motionless. The smirk that once adorned his face now vanished. The applause surged around Emma, overwhelming her like a powerful tide. It was overwhelming, primal, relentless. Individuals stood, patrons adorned in lavish suits and shimmering gowns, their meals abandoned, applauding with a fervor that resonated through the marble floor. The restaurant had evolved, not into a site of scrutiny, but into a platform where an unforgettable moment had just taken place. Emma remained motionless at the piano, her fingers lingering on the keys. Her chest heaved with irregular breaths. Did that truly just occur? She tilted her head ever so slightly, her gaze sweeping across the room. Incredible astonishment, wonder, and raw feeling. It was evident on every face, from the servers lining the walls to the executive crowd at Philip Lancaster's table. Except for Philip. He remained still. He did not applaud. His fingers wrapped around the wine glass, yet the tension in his grip was palpable. His gaze, previously brimming with self-satisfied mirth, was now fixed on Emma, assessing, frigid. She had shattered his game, snatched away his moment of ridicule, and transformed it into something remarkable. A seasoned manager, an older gentleman with keen eyes dressed in a finely tailored suit, advanced with purpose. His expression was enigmatic, yet his gaze remained fixed on Emma, hinting at a deep-seated admiration. "Excuse me, but may I ask where you acquired such remarkable skills in playing?" Emma parted her lips, yet silence enveloped her. She was at a loss for words. Where had she acquired this knowledge? From a mother who had once held aspirations for her, from fleeting instances at the community center before its closure, from an ancient keyboard in her childhood room, the very one she had parted with to ensure the lights remained on. She was never taught, never experienced the privilege of structured guidance. Just love, just loss. Philip at last stirred, placing his glass down with a purposeful clink. The atmosphere, alive with anticipation, hushed slightly. "All right," he said, his voice fluid yet tinged with a hint of something cutting. "You engaged in play. I have a gratuity for you." A wicked grin spread across his face as he delved into his jacket, retrieved his wallet, and tossed a pristine $100 bill onto the piano. It came to rest before Emma, jarring and offensive against the gleaming black backdrop. Deriding. A handful of anxious laughs echoed softly in the room, but they faded swiftly. A transformation in the atmosphere was palpable. The admiration, the respect that Emma had just earned. Philip yearned to remove it all with one fluid motion. Emma glanced at the bill, then raised her gaze to meet his. She was capable of handling it. Step away. Allow him to think he remains in command. With a deliberate motion, Emma lifted the bill between her fingers. Her hands were steady now. When she finally spoke, her voice resonated with clarity and strength. Hold on to it, she said. It seems you could benefit from it more than I can. A shared breath. Philip's smirk wavered. A whistle echoed from the other side of the restaurant. A handful of individuals chuckled. Not at Emma this time, but at Philip, the billionaire who attempted to belittle a waitress and found himself utterly speechless instead. Emma placed the bill softly beside his glass, then turned and departed. Neither toward the kitchen nor back to clearing tables. She strode by the diners, glided past the astonished servers, and exited through the front door. Though her shift continued, a part of her had already reached its conclusion. Throughout her life, she had always felt diminished. This evening, she had revealed herself to the world. She was far from it. As she ventured into the night, the cool air enveloped her, sharp and charged with energy. Her heart raced, not out of fear, but from an entirely different sensation, liberation. Little did she know what awaited her in the unfolding story. The crisp city air brushed against Emma's skin as she made her way onto the sidewalk. The restaurant's warm light created elongated shadows, while the distant echoes of laughter and the soft clinking of glasses lingered just beyond the doors behind her. She stepped out, not out of necessity, but by her own decision. Her heart raced from the recent events. The piano, the applause, the way she had rendered Philip Lancaster speechless with nothing but her music and her words. She ought to have felt fear. She had just stepped away from her shift, and the possibility loomed that she might not have a job to go back to. Yet, rather than fear, she experienced a sense of lightness, freedom, and vitality. Beg your pardon? Excuse me? Emma pivoted. A tall figure clad in a sharp, navy blue suit lingered just beyond the restaurant's entrance, his demeanor enigmatic. He exuded maturity, his silver hair impeccably arranged, his stance radiating assurance. This individual held significant importance. It was evident from the manner in which those around him instinctively moved aside. "A word is what I seek," he stated. Emma's muscles tightened. Did he hold a managerial position? Was there someone who felt hurt by her decision to leave? But then she noticed his eyes, devoid of anger, inquisitive, fascinated. I should probably head back inside," she murmured, casting a quick look at the entrance. The man's lips curled into a knowing smile. "I question whether that's necessary." Emma paused, uncertainty flickering in her mind. His presence stirred something within her, a flutter in her stomach that was fueled not by fear, but by a thrilling sense of anticipation. "Allow me to present myself," he remarked, extending his hand. Richard Calloway. Her breath hitched. That title, that name was familiar to her. Richard Calloway, an acclaimed music producer, is the mastermind behind numerous prominent figures in both classical and contemporary piano. Emma's heartbeat thundered in her ears. "I remained indoors," Calloway persisted, his tone fluid and composed. "I heard you perform." He allowed those words to linger in the air, observing her expression intently. "Is playing the piano all you do, Miss Emma?" she whispered, struggling to grasp the reality of the moment. "Emma, you don't merely engage. You immerse yourself. The rhythm resonates within you. And that," he remarked, his eyes shimmering with a keen insight, "is a truth that eludes instruction." Emma parted her lips, yet silence enveloped her. Did this actually happen? "I shall not squander your time," Calloway continued. "Individuals dedicate countless years honing their craft to achieve what you accomplished in there. Yet you performed as if that moment had been the culmination of a lifetime of anticipation. Emma took a deep breath. I haven't played in years. According to Calloway, that adds to its remarkable nature. A car glided to the curb, a polished black town car, the sort that exuded elegance without the need for proclamation. The driver emerged, swinging open the rear door. Calloway delved into his pocket and presented Emma with a card. My private contact. He instructed me to call him. With a subtle, knowing nod, he remarked, that is, unless you'd prefer to continue waiting tables. Emma's breath caught in her throat. He pivoted, entering the car in silence. The door closed with a finality, and in mere moments, the vehicle vanished into the distance, leaving Emma rooted in place, the card searing her fingertips. Her universe had just transformed, and for the first time in ages, she found herself with a decision to make. Emma remained motionless on the sidewalk, her gaze fixed on the card she held tightly in her hands. Richard Calloway, a figure of significance in the realm of music, a man who had just presented her with an opportunity she had never imagined could exist. The eatery behind her seemed like a fading recollection. The echoes of laughter and the clinking of glasses had lost their significance. This instant, this card, contained the essence of her whole future. Her fingers quivered gently as she followed the raised letters. Reach out to him. That was everything she needed to accomplish. However, excuse me? Emma had been caught in the grind of mere existence for so long that the essence of dreaming had slipped from her grasp. She inhaled deeply, tucking the card into her pocket. Not at this moment. Not while her feelings remained intertwined. She required a moment to gather her thoughts. She began to stroll, the refreshing night air brushing against her skin. The city pulsed with energy. Taxi horns blare, music drifts in the distance, and the steady beat of footsteps echoes on the pavement. Yet deep within, Emma sensed she was perched on the brink of a precipice, gazing into the abyss of uncertainty. Was it truly possible for her to accomplish this? Was she truly worthy of this opportunity? Her feet guided her to a well-known spot before she even became aware of it, the small apartment she had struggled so fiercely to maintain. She turned the key, pushing the door open and entering the space. The tiny room was filled with a jumble of belongings, yet it exuded warmth, serving as the sole sanctuary that had ever genuinely belonged to her. She settled onto the couch, retrieving the card once more. The name seemed to shimmer softly in the low light. For years, she held onto the belief that her dreams were unattainable, that her fate was to toil through double shifts, merely surviving as life unfolded around her. Yet this evening had revealed something entirely unique. She possessed remarkable skill. She possessed strength. At this moment, she faced a decision. The phone rested on the coffee table. Just a single call. That was all it required. Emma's heart raced as she grasped it, her fingers poised above the keypad. The burden of her history pressed down on her, a relentless reminder of each setback, each letdown. What if she fell short? What if this were merely a wicked prank? What if... Did she not succeed? Numerical value. She tightened her jaw, dispelling the uncertainty. She had already reached the depths. She found herself with nothing remaining to risk. Taking a moment to steady herself, she pressed the digits on her phone. A single ring. 2, 3. Subsequently, "This is Richard." His voice exuded a sense of tranquility and composure. Emma felt a parched sensation in her throat. What was she meant to express? She compelled herself to utter the words. "It's Emma from the eatery." A moment of stillness. Then a subtle glimmer of amusement. "That was quick. I anticipated that you would need at least a few days." Emma took a deep breath. "I'm done with waiting." Yet another moment of stillness. Subsequently, a soft laugh. Not ridiculing. Not harsh. Authentic. "Excellent," Calloway remarked. "Let's connect tomorrow morning. 10 o'clock in the morning. Keen." Emma let out a breath, her fingers clutching the phone tightly. This was genuine. "Where?" she inquired. A location illuminated on her display. A secluded workspace. "Until then," Calloway remarked. The conversation concluded. Emma placed the phone on the table, her hands trembling. On the morrow, her life was on the brink of transformation, and this time she felt prepared. Emma hardly found rest that night. Her thoughts surged with a whirlwind of possibilities, anxieties, and exhilaration. Did this actually happen? Was she on the brink of entering a realm she had long since abandoned? As the morning sun poured through her window, a realization dawned upon her. This was the moment. She selected her attire with intention, opting for a look that was both understated and polished. Nothing extravagant. She desired her music to convey its own message. At 9:45 a.m., she found herself standing outside the location Richard Calloway had provided. The structure exuded a contemporary elegance, its tinted glass windows concealing the mysteries within. This was no ordinary studio. This is the birthplace of legends. With a steadying inhale, she crossed the threshold. The receptionist acknowledged her presence with a courteous nod. "Mr. Calloway awaits your arrival." Moments later, Emma stood in a stunning studio. The walls gleamed with platinum records, each one a tribute to Calloway's impact on the music scene. A majestic piano occupied the heart of the room, its lustrous finish shimmering beneath the gentle glow of the lighting. Calloway lingered beside it, engaged in conversation with another man, a dapper figure possessing keen, penetrating eyes. Upon spotting Emma, he gestured for her to come closer. "You're early?" Calloway remarked, a subtle smile dancing on his lips. Emma responded, expressing her desire not to squander your time. Well, he motioned towards the piano. "Let's find out if last night was merely a coincidence." Emma felt a knot form in her stomach. This was the defining moment. She approached, her fingers gliding over the keys with a delicate touch. The presence of the past enveloped her. How many legends have graced this very bench? How many began their journey in this very way? With a deep inhale, she shut her eyes and started to play. The initial note resonated, sharp and distinct, followed by another, and yet another. The world dimmed away. She found herself free from the confines of the studio, no longer under the watchful eye of Richard Calloway. She had returned to her sanctuary. The melody flowed from her, unstoppable and powerful, as if a barrier had been shattered. Each note resonated with years of yearning, of dreams unfulfilled, of quiet nights filled with the thought that she might never play again. She engaged with purpose. She wove a tale. When the last note echoed through the room, Emma finally opened her eyes. Silence. She looked up, her breath hitching. Calloway and the other man were staring, not with boredom, not with polite approval, with shock. The other man, who Emma now realized was somewhat important, turned to Calloway. "She's the one." Calloway nodded, his expression unreadable. Then he clapped his hands together. "Emma," he said, his voice measured, "how would you feel about signing a contract today?" Emma's breath stopped. She blinked. "A contract?" Calloway leaned against the piano, studying her. "I don't waste time. You have something rare, something powerful. I would like to help you shape it into something the world will never forget." Emma's pulse thundered. This wasn't just an opportunity. This was the opportunity. The past, the restaurant, the years of struggling, the self-doubt, all of it led to this moment. Her fingers curled against the keys. She had spent years believing she was just a waitress, that her dreams were foolish, impossible. But now, she was about to prove to the world that she was so much more. She lifted her chin, meeting Calloway's gaze. "Where do I sign?"